So again, these people have literally grafted theater onto again an ever-present reality, which is not really a big deal. In this case, as we said, coronavirus, coronaviruses. There are also retroviruses and other types of viruses. These all exist in the physical human organism. They're present. They're a part of it. Without it, it couldn't exist. And really, in a sense, the immune system is, in a sense, a virus. I mean, these things get really convoluted, and this is not really for the general public, and it's not to say everyone should understand this detailed. But then again, it's not really that hard to figure out once you understand that. Because you have white blood cells, but you also have parts of cells that make viruses that, in a sense, combine or maintain even the body in a certain sense, because you have the interaction between bacteria and viruses, and of course germs. Everything's a germ. A sperm cell was a germ. So this basic understanding, of course, this is not going to happen. I don't, this is not some. I'm not preaching, optimism at the end of this so-called tunnel. I mean, this is just really a worst nightmare for people who are conscious. This thing quickly has drawn the line between, like someone said, like I said in that one video, I referenced that Aristotle quote where he said, "The educated differ from the uneducated as much as the living from the dead." Now, he's even, Aristotle is not just talking about somebody who went to college, even a PhD, even a doctorate, even a master's. That's part of the, again, the civilization. And a lot of that is twisted by the pre-scientists of the civilization. That's why every educated person you would talk to would tell you that the Earth is a globe. We live on a globe covered with water in an infinite vacuum, catapulting through space. Not just the educated though, also the ignorant would tell you that because they've seen it. They've been convinced enough by the TV. But again, Aristotle, he's not talking about that type of education where it comes from the society per se. He's even talking about, like, esoteric education, more so metaphysics, and again what we would call, I don't even like the term spirituality no more. I don't like any of these words because they get co-opted by the mediocre, and they lose their meaning even to someone who's trying to look beyond what they've already heard. It sort of loses its meaning and it confuses you. You got to review the concepts and imaginations that come to your mind when you hear certain words, because some of those may need to be redone, recreated, so you can get the new meaning. It has to work together, because sometimes you hear words and you just assume, oh, I know what that means. You go on and go on, and if someone says a word you don't know, that's when you stop. But actually, you might not know what spirituality is, because as I said, as Lao Tzu said, spirituality is when the senses are turned inwards. So that's very esoteric, because it doesn't deal with sense-based, even egoism and egoic magnification and post-mortem egos creating their own universes or whatever, or even their own versions of heaven. Because any type of belief that says you're going to have a post-mortem world is no different from the church selling people, heaven. No difference at all. It's just they have a homogenous view, the herd. But then you have, of course, black sheep. But some of the black sheep, they still want a heaven, so they'll still give egoic magnifications, which are still based on sense perception, duality. That's not spirituality, because you're dealing with duality, and spirituality is not duality. Spirituality is the non-dual. That's why when you get into all these, even pranayama, the yogas and everything, they're talking about the spine, because the spine correlates to the non-dual. When you have two arms, two eyes, you've been sort of morphed or mutated, biologically mutated, and even by a psychophysical, organism into duality, which of course brings on sense perception, which of course would be consciousness, body consciousness. which equals duality. So, you can't have spirituality, or that's not really spiritual in a sense. That's physical. That's not metaphysical. Senses are physical. The mind is actually physical. Perception, you can say, basically has to do with space, time, which is really matter and time, really, I guess you would say. Space is really matter, you could say. But that's not non-space, non-matter. That's not the timeless, spaceless, the immaterial, which would be spiritual. So you're confusing the term spiritual, is what I'm saying. So that's esoteric. That concept alone, what I just explained, is even esoteric to a lot of people who think they're conscious and esoteric. Because I just told you that it has nothing to do with any of your senses, even your thinking. So, if your lessons or whatever, not saying you shouldn't have books or whatever, and your symbols and your lessons, if they don't lead you back into the nonsense, basically the chaos. See, chaos is nonsense. Then, conventionally speaking, you're speaking nonsense. That's exoteric. That's not even esoteric. And this is what Aristotle is actually referring to when he means the educated versus the uneducated. The difference is like between the living and the dead. It is. But now we have here, in a mundane circumstance, where it's like a switch was flipped, and quickly the on a mundane level again, the living mundane, are quickly differentiated from the living or from the dead mundane, in the mundane sense. You really get to see who's not thinking, who's not thoughtful. In this age, I think it becomes more clear. You can sort of make a more accurate judgment on it. Because in the past, we could say, well, didn't know, couldn't read, didn't have the information. What are you going to do? It was inevitable. But now here we have something that has been going on for a few months. And we live in the what's called, the information age. We have the information superhighway. Ironically, aided along in a certain sense by Kill Gates, Mangala Gates. But of course, we know he's a front man. He was actually put on. His father was head of Planned Parenthood. He even admitted it or said it. Most people don't know. My dad is, and that's Margaret Sanger. And so these people basically, especially want to depopulate, but especially even, as they say, black people, the Negro. Supposedly, they have this vision where, or Margaret Sanger spoke about, don't let everybody know that we're trying to exterminate the Negro. And that's what, they were using Planned Parenthood in a sense. That's that pro-abortion thing, which is interesting because, of course, when you get into antinatalism, and there's a book I have on Hindu ethics where they go into abortion and how, how should the even the esoteric Upanishads and the Vedas, or how are we to accept abortion if, you guys say, well, this is actually essentially hell, and we should be liberated. So you guys preach liberation. So what do you think about abortion? Would that be liberation? So this author is it's kind of from SUNY Press, State University of New York. So he goes into it, certain debates, because it's not necessarily cut and dry. But of course, conventionally speaking, as we know, abortion, even now with this third trimester abortion, it gets brutal. And even for someone who's an antinatalist, only a portion of you would be able to actually perform one of those. I think just without being somewhat disturbed, even though, we speak about consciousness doesn't emerge till, some people will say around 6 months, consciousness and feeling. But, that means nothing to, certain types of people. That's irrelevant. They see life, which is really just matter. But when you start talking about the third trimester, then it gets a little brutal. And then it becomes something as it does reach on the grounds of immorality. Now, so they were doing this, of course. Of course, they're going to put the stuff in these things in black neighborhoods and But again, it's up to the people's choice. People have the choice to have an abortion or not. Planned Parenthood doesn't go around knocking on doors and just killing the babies. I mean, maybe they'll do that one day. It looked like it's coming down, but they didn't do that. So it was still a takes two to tango type of thing. Couldn't do it without you. But anyway, her goal again is to exterminate the Negroes, and that's why Melinda Gates is coming out talking about, you know what, we need to give this first to healthcare workers and black people. But of course, you have a lot of black people not going for that shit. I'm not falling for it, and it's a lot of even black people that are kind of waking up to this thing. So this is could turn into a real debacle. But anyway, that was Planned Parenthood's you could say micro goal. That's a micro goal. It's not the macro. That's just how they focus on a certain segment. But ultimately, the whole thing, of course, is Georgia Guidestones, depopulation. So, Mangala Gates, he did help this along because, again, his father was also a lawyer. He's one of the banksters. He plugged in with the Rockefellers. So some people know about that. It's all the elites, the oligarchs or whatever. So, they helped this internet come along for good or for worse. It's here, and it's a lot of information on it. Information super highway. You can access anything you want to access. Anything you want to know, you can look up. And this thing's been going on for a few months now. And so you got to ask yourself, what portion of the population is even learning more as this goes along? Because I can understand, the first week or whatever, getting scared, because they did a good job. I don't watch TV like that, like mainstream news. All that. I don't even watch that stuff, so I can't really, I do see people watch it. You go certain places, always on CNN. They did a good job. I mean, it would be hard to differentiate if you really believed in the news, So you can understand they're getting bombarded with constant fear, and these people that they trust are telling them this shit. Then they have people who are doctors coming on. That it's such an orchestration, and that's why they had that event 201. The exercise with Bill Gates and the guys, and they actually did it with the military involved. They already had the plan rolled out, or they do have the plan rolled out. Let's just say, and how they're going to confront this. Talking about we're gonna, they had GNN as the as the fake CNN they're going to use because CNN is sort of like the main mouthpiece of this shit. Everything is being exercised out, tabletop, live exercise, and that's what this is. That was their rehearsal, and this is the live exercise, like in 9/11. It's a live drill. It's like even one guy said it's actually more like a fire drill. It's like you can see everybody got trained because remember fire drills in school were very serious. You had to really stay in line. You couldn't disrupt or mess up the fire drill, and that's what they kind of put the kids, the subjects of state propaganda. We're on a fire drill, and we're supposed to take this seriously. And you can kill somebody if you decide to breathe without suffocation, without partial suffocation. You can kill somebody. You have to suffocate your way to health. This is the consensus of a good portion of people. We can say. If we just go out into the public. So we would call these people dead. Given the fact that the information superhighway is here, you can click on any article you can learn. Granted, there is censorship, but you can find it if you're looking for it. And it's like, what's in your search bar? 3 months have gone on. And you're telling me that the general consensus has basically more or less stayed about the same. Like they're trying to double down on this you can't enter here without a mask thing. So it's like, hold on, why is this increasing when again there's been no impact in your local life? I'm seeing the same faces. I'm not noticing again any new YouTube, Facebook, Instagrams of personal testimonies. I mean, this should be imagine a pandemic going on in the social media age. It would be everywhere. It would be on all these testimonies. We would be experiencing. You would see what bodies being buried in people's backyards. more coronavirus tragedy. It's not happening. So there's no increase, and this attack never happened. So this doubling down should not take place. Even though the businesses, they could say, don't come in without a mask. But if the consensus was, if half of the people were like, man, fuck that, you think the business is gonna just close? They will have to give in to the people. But there's this mechanism, and it's sort of like it's telepathic almost, or even worse than that. It's just like a resonance where it's just this immediate give in. Like if you look around, you'll see videos of people getting basically shamed and cussed out for not having masks on in certain places by the mob. So they're like dead. This thing has like drawn a line between, again, the living and the dead. At least if you want to talk about the more socio-political awakened consciousnesses, who understand that they're participating in a certain system that's not as simple as it appears. That's still, what, 15%? I don't know. Probably less than that of people who really understand beyond the surface of things. So this thing has really gotten pretty Twilight Zone-ish. And you just would never suspect that it could even continue this long, again, with all this information available. Because, a lot of the information is published. It's online. Like I put a link to the UN site. It's right in your face. So clearly, the information, although again it's being censored on YouTube and things like that, you can find it if you're looking for it, or you could just ask the right questions and you'll find a lot of other alternative narratives. But regardless, of course, this is being pushed from the top down. We can say that a lot of the governors, are pretty much in line with this. Even a lot of senators, Gates and the people, who basically control him in a certain sense or instruct him. His pockets, are just unlimited virtually, and you always have a great, or a certain portion of people who will be bribed. Especially, they already have power. The power already bribed them. I don't care who you are. No matter how much good you do, as soon as somebody says, all right, now you're going to run us, you're going to start to look down, in a certain sense, on the people you're running. And they're going to start to look up to you, who was really just at once a fellow comrade. Now you just, they look up to you. So that, so you're already corrupted by that. And then here comes Gates donating 25 million, go along with the Gates Foundation. And these foundations are basically, you're really starting to see what they're really about, achieving massive agendas that really advantage, the founders of the foundations. So they got to start with the brainwashing and the news. And so, Gates owns a lot of media or donates. And then you have the Fauci guy who's in Gates' back pocket. And, he even just admitted that, I talk to him all the time. So, boldly so, he admits this. And no one says, well, damn, maybe Fauci is working for Gates. But then again, they're so brainwashed. And I think a lot of people, basically, I think, they're banking on the fact that most people will say, oh, he's helping the world heal because he's the richest man. So, he's like the only one who can do it. I think that's what they're hoping for. But like I said, they have overreached. I mean, there's a good portion out of, of people who are like, get the fuck out of here with this Bill Gates guy. They're not buying it. Again, so he just came out saying, well, the hurdle will be trying to get people to take it. Well, you damn right. Who the fuck are you? You're not going to poison everybody. I mean, this is really some Austin Powers shit. And again, it's like Twilight Zone-ish. It's surreal. Like, is this really happening? Did the richest man in the world, basically, some tech giant, get on the TV screen and say, I'm holding you all ransom as my guinea pigs. And until I get my experiment fulfilled, you can't do much of anything. At least that you were used to, in the way you were used to. This just happened. So, and again, most people, even with the information age, even using the tools that Gates and company helped to put forth, haven't learned much more. Even though you don't need most people to, you just need a certain qualitative portion of the people to know, which is happening, and that'll be enough to sort of thwart it. But even on the other side of this thing, which is, let's just say there's a health threat. There's actually a virus spreading. I'll say that in quotes, throughout a certain population. This virus involves cold, flu, mucus-like reactions that get into breathing, respiratory issues, which actually have to do again with the blood. They don't have to do with the mucus. They're really scaring people, talking about this thing is deadly. It attacks the lungs. You can't breathe. So they are scaring the shit out of people, and they're putting in death fear. And it's like people, I don't want to take a chance with it. It's like, if I say I got a house in the sky or whatever, and I just tell a bunch of people this shit, and then somebody comes and says he didn't have a house in the sky. Now all the people, they gang up on that guy and say, what? You tells me he ain't got no house in the sky? Who the fuck are you? How you gonna question them? You don't know that. You don't know he don't got a house in the sky. And then you come back, you lay down all the reasons why you think so, and here's this, that doesn't equal this. And they just shun you off as some conspiracy theorist. And then start asking him how many rooms the house has. Is there a pool? That's essentially what happens when these basically these secret fucking services take over the media and propaganda arms and get the confidence and trust of people. They can pretty much say what they want. That's the whole power and control in the media. That's why you hear rich people or wealthy people buy newspapers and things like that, because they get to control the minds. That's how you control. The best way to control people. Force is second. The mind is the best. But of course, the mind don't work. You can always threaten with force. But of course, any parent knows this also. And that's what I was saying about, well, you kind of learn this obedience to authority as a child. And if you're a parent, you can, all you got to do is take a look at some of the things you do to your child to manipulate them. And just admit to yourself that, well, your authorities or rulers will use the same techniques on you. So it's not too far-fetched that you're being lied to and manipulated by authorities when you do it yourself. But anyway, let's just say, there is a house in the sky. There is this spike-balled germy thing that as soon as you breathe it in or happen to encounter it, it goes inside of you and makes you sick. It could kill you. Or it goes inside of you, lives there silently, and it may jump out and grab onto someone else and kill them. Or kill grandma. You don't want to kill grandma. This is a conspiracy theory. It's like one of the founders, I think. He was a chiropractor. I think his name was B.J. Palmer. I'll leave a link or whatever. But he said, basically, if deadly germs existed in the manner that they try to tell us, then we wouldn't even exist. So this is the real conspiracy theory. But let's just say there's a health threat going around. I don't think McDonald's and Chick-fil-A and Krispy Kreme should be backed up. I mean, I have a Krispy Kreme over here. This thing is backed up into the street. I'm talking about seriously backed up at certain times. And you wonder why people are even waiting this long. You don't have anything to do, to sit here in the line for Krispy Kreme. But to each his own. Whatever. It's your vice. Point is, isn't there a health threat? No one's becoming more wiser about immune system, what foods to eat to boost the immune system, and maybe I shouldn't be eating all this Taco Tuesdays just because there is a health threat. No, no, no. The consensus, at least among, at least half of people, and that's just, is you got to suffocate yourself, and just, you keep eating McDonald's. It's fine. Just make sure you suffocate yourself, and you will be healthy. It's like welcome to the world of stupid 19. Peace.